Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Alicia and I'm the owner of Alicia Be Creative. In today's video, I'm going to show you a bunch of different teacher appreciation items that you can create for end of the year teacher gifts, Teacher Appreciation Week, which is coming up in May, and all of those opportunities and times to show teachers some extra love. So I'm going to walk you through the process of creating each of these items, and I just love how this entire bundle and set came together. So of course, everything will be listed and linked down below in the description box, as well as any discount codes, but let's go ahead and jump right into today's video. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with the clipboard. So we are going to be using quite a bit of some Teckwrap craft vinyl in today's tutorial, and this is their satin vinyl. So I'll list all of the colors, of course, down in the description box, but when I received this promo box, I decided that a lot of the colors in this box would be great for some teacher appreciation items. Of course, I have some other items that I'm going to use that are also from Teckwrap that are not just a vinyl, but these colors just kind of spoke to me once I saw them. So the first thing I did, of course, was prep my clipboard. So this is just a traditional, cardboard style clipboard that literally you can get from anywhere, including the Dollar Tree. I actually have an entire package of these, and they make great end of the year teacher gifts. And I love to add these to like a end of the year appreciation gift with like a tumbler or something that I've made that, of course, is teacher themed. So I'm going to start by using like this chrome yellow satin color, and this is going to be the background for the pencil tumbler the pencil design that we're going to create on the back side of this clipboard. Okay, so you guys have seen me do clipboards before, and typically I design both the front and the back, but for these clipboards I like to just design the back and not the front, and kind of just leave the front blank. I just feel like it creates just sort of a crisp look without taking away from obviously the full function of the clipboard. So with this vinyl, I am just going to roll this onto the back of this clipboard after I have prepped this, just to sort of be the base for our, of course, pencil design for this clipboard. Okay, so using my big squeeze to get this vinyl pushed all the way onto this clipboard nice and smoothly, avoiding any bubbles and wrinkles that may happen while applying. And then we're going to go ahead and trim off the edges. So the way that I trim off the edges is I will just kind of push down the vinyl over the edge of the clipboard and then use my squeegee just to follow up, just to really make sure I have a really harsh defined line, which is going to make it a little bit easier when I go to cut away the excess with my craft knife. So similarly to what I would do on the top rim or bottom rim of a tumbler, I'm doing the same thing with this clipboard. So taking a super sharp craft knife, I'm going to go ahead and trim all of the edges, removing all the excess vinyl, really being careful around the edges because these are rounded edges. So those took me a little bit more time to sort of trim that excess vinyl around versus the straight edges. But once you're done, you should have something that looks like this. Okay, so now I'm going to take you into Cricut Design Space, and I want to show you how I set up the other pieces that we're going to need to add to our pencil clipboard. So ideally, of course, you could just, measure different sections of vinyl and use, a paper cutter to cut some of the larger strips, but for the triangular pieces, I just feel like I would show you the same process, or the same sort of process that I used for this in Cricut versus just cutting and piecing them together with just a paper cutter. So what I've done is I have taken a rounded rectangle and I've measured the size of my clipboard, and I've just laid that and made that the background of my clipboard. So we already have that established. Now I'm going to take a 1-inch rectangle and I'm going to stretch it to the width of my clipboard, and I'm only making these sections 1 inch wide, or 1 inch tall, I should say. Okay, I'm then going to, of course, change the colors, the top being pink and the second down at the bottom, that rectangle is going to be black to represent, of course, the lead of the pencil. I'm then going to duplicate another rectangle, which is going to be the silver section of the pencil. Okay, now I'm going to take a triangle shape from the shapes feature in Cricut Design Space, and I'm going to narrow it just a little bit, change the color here, and then I'm going to duplicate this multiple times. Once I've duplicated this, I'm now just going to take these triangles and align them along the bottom to get them to fit, okay? So originally I thought that I was going to need to use 6 of them, but I decided to not go that route because we did have a little bit of space. And what I did was I just moved each triangle down a little bit, giving just a little bit more space to those in between sections to just even it all out. I then will select all of the triangles and I'm going to use the align tool to evenly space them and then make sure they're aligned at the bottom and attach this so that it's all attached in case I want to just use a transfer tape to be able to apply this, okay? So now I've gotten all my vinyl and I have cut it with my Cricut, and now we are ready to assemble the rest of the clipboard, okay? So starting of course with that pink satin vinyl, we're gonna go ahead and do the eraser section here, just lining that up along the edge, knowing I'm gonna have a little bit of excess on the edges, which is great and fine because I can trim that afterward, but I am trying to avoid making sure I don't have any overlap up top. So really measuring that and lining that up really nicely up top, okay? I'm now going to take this chrome vinyl that I got from HTV Rot, and I'm going to go ahead and measure that, literally place that right under the pink eraser section, working with my larger rectangular pieces first, because those of course are going to be the easiest for me to be able to place down and get those on the cup. Or on the clipboard. Once I'm done with the rectangular pieces, I'm going to go ahead and do all of my trimming now, because with my triangles that are going to represent, of course, the shaved pencil part of this clipboard, I'm not going to need to do any trimming with those. So I'm going to do all my trimming now before I then, go to focusing on the triangular pieces that will be the pencil. Okay, so after I have trimmed these, again, being a little bit more careful and more cautious around the curved edges to make sure I get all of that vinyl removed, we'll go ahead and hand place these triangular shapes. So I could have just used a piece of transfer tape and just did it that way, but because I knew I had a little bit of overlap because I had purposefully overshot the width of my clipboard in Cricut Design Space to give myself a little wiggle room with the rectangles, I decided it would just be easiest to hand place them. So all I'm doing is removing those triangular pieces out of that rose gold color, the satin vinyl, and just placing those and using that bottom black rectangle as my guide to make sure that they're all nicely aligned at the bottom, okay? So I'm doing that until I get to the very edge, and I'm just kind of being mindful and making sure that they're pretty much evenly spaced. Could I have gone a little bit farther over? Probably, but I really wanted to make sure they all went on to this evenly and I didn't need to trim anything off. So that part is done, and so now we're literally going to go right into adding all of our vinyl work. So I always have on hand extra, vinyl stripes. I usually take like a big old 12 by 12 sheet of black and white vinyl, and I always have those cut into vinyl strips that I can use for any template that I'm working on. It just kind of saves me in the long run to not have to get my Cricut to cut extra sheets. I love doing this. It just saves me the hassle of having to do so. And when I don't want to fight with my Cricut, you guys always know that I will gravitate towards using washi tape, which is what I'm going to use for the other sections of this clipboard we have here. So I'm taking some gold metallic washi tape here, and I'm gonna go ahead and just line those pencil triangle shapes and make those straight lines through the yellow section, okay? So I'm gonna do that until all of those are connected and we have that connected to the silver, and then I'll go back and go ahead and I will now frame out the pencil section with a rose gold metallic washi tape. I buy the metallic washi tape bundle from Hobby Lobby every time I go. It just saves me so much time in not having to find colors that match and making sure that I, have almost like a differentiating color, because the yellow that is the satin vinyl from Teckwrap is very much different than the gold metallic washi tape. So enough that it's not going to be too matchy, but also that it's going to stand out on its own. So I'm going to continue to just go through doing the outline of the pencil shape there, and then I'm going to go back to the top, and I didn't have enough silver or a pink that I liked for the top, so I just decided to go back and outline those with black. I think that it looked fine with black. Normally I would outline this top section with a silver on both the top and bottom, but because we were using a metallic really vibrant chrome looking vinyl for the silver, I thought it was best that it probably was best that I didn't already have a silver like washi tape, because I think it would have been a little bit too matchy honestly. Sort of that chrome color is a little bit, you know, harder to get a different color. So I just decided to go back through and go over that section with the black. So this is ready to go. The last thing I'm going to do now that we have all of our vinyl placed, I'm just going to go ahead and take some polyacrylic and we're going to seal in all of this vinyl. We want to make sure that we don't have any issues with any of this lifting during the coats of epoxy. So for this clipboard, the only thing I'm going to do next is I'm just going to epoxy it for 2 full coats. I think it would look super cute with a teacher-like saying, but I decided to just leave this blank just because it might be something that's purchased later and might want to be personalized, so I just decided to leave it blank. We're now going to move on to the next 2 items that are part of our teacher appreciation bundle here. So I have a pen from Maker Flow that I'm going to go ahead and disassemble and just take off that outer silver chamber there, which is what we will glitter and paint, of course. And then this to the right side of the screen is a pen and sticky note holder. It is created for sublimation. I found it on Amazon, and so that's where I got mine, but I also will list another crafter that I came across who actually sells these blanks out of acrylic on her Etsy shop, and they're super popular. It doesn't come with the pen piece, but it is like a sticky note holder for a teacher desk, which I thought is just super cute and just a really unique thing that I think a teacher would love to have on their desk as like an end of the year gift or a teacher appreciation gift. So we're gonna prep these just like we would any of the other pieces we're going to be using today, and then wipe them down with some 91% rubbing alcohol to remove any of that sanding debris before we get into painting these items. So I'm just going to attach the pen piece to a dowel and put that in my pen holder there. That way we can set that aside and that will be ready for painting and glittering when we need it to be. I'm now going to take some black matte chalk paint and I'm just going to base paint these. So both of these items are going to be composition notebook looking. Okay, so you're going to see that although all of the items are different, they're all teacher themed. Okay, so obviously we did the pencil clipboard. We're now going to work on doing the composition notebook style sticky note holder with pen. So I've just taken that black craft paint and I've just painted over the pen and the top portion of the sticky note holder here. And we're going to let this dry. Now this is chalk paint, so it's really going to dry rather quickly. I don't need to wait too long. But while we are waiting for that to dry, we're not going to waste any time, but we're going to go ahead and prep the back portion of this sticky note holder. So I got this vinyl from 311 Co. I do have a discount code down in the description box. And when I was putting this idea together of all these teacher appreciation items, of course I went through my stock of vinyl to see like what I could use. And when I saw this, I was like, this is absolutely perfect. It's got all those teacher like items that are in as part of the vinyl. And it's on this beautiful holographic vinyl that I just feel like is a perfect contrast to the composition notebook look that we're going for the outer portion of the sticky note holder. So all I did was measure this back piece along the vinyl to just make sure I could get enough of a section to cover this entire section. Now you aren't going to see all of the vinyl under the once we apply that top section, but you will see it through in the sticky note square and where the pen will lay or be held. So you could, in hindsight, only cut smaller pieces if you really wanted to save your vinyl and just place them where those 2 pieces are. But to me, that just seems like much more work. It just was easier for me to apply the entire section of vinyl to the back portion of the sticky note holder than trying to just place sections of this vinyl where it's going to be seen in the end. Okay, so that's all finished. We've just trimmed, of course, those edges, and now we can go back to glittering the top part of the sticky note holder and the pen that's going to go with it. So the glitter that I'm going to use today is Jack from Glitterati Co. And so I got this a while back, and I have a few other composition notebook style glitters that are like that black and white look. But this one is definitely my favorite. It's a more of an irregular cut glitter, and it sticks much better to smaller things like a pen, where you don't want your chunky glitter to be so chunky that it really makes for needing to do a lot of sanding in between coats of epoxy. And so that's what I liked about this cut of this black and white glitter together versus some of the other ones that I do have on my shelf. So I'm going to, of course, glitter the pen, and we're just going to set that aside while we go ahead and glitter the front portion of the sticky note holder. This one was a little bit more challenging, I would say, to glitter at epoxy, just because it does have those super fine edges, which did make it a little bit challenging with this glitter to be able to ensure that I got full coverage. But I definitely feel like having the background as black really did work in my favor to make sure that if there wasn't a whole lot of glitter present on a certain section, it wasn't completely apparent because of the background being, of course, the black that really matched the glitter that was on here. So before this fully dries, I just want to pat down this glitter because this is a chunky, irregular cut glitter, and I don't like to do a whole lot of sanding if I can avoid it. So I'm going to take a little bit of parchment paper here and just sort of push down any of that glitter, making sure I have a nice smooth surface to work with when it comes to, of course, epoxying. So we now are going to epoxy the first 3 pieces of our appreciation gifts for teachers here. I'm going to start with the clipboard here, and I'm going to put most of my epoxy on the clipboard because I won't need as much for the other 2 pieces since we'll be doing subsequent coats on this. The clipboard took probably about just under 60 mLs, I would say. I didn't want to pour too much in my first coat because with these types of clipboards, I notice as I've been making them and sort of getting better at making this style versus the full acrylic ones is that less is more with your epoxy. You don't want too much epoxy pooled on these that it's going to dribble over the side. You'll notice that I didn't also do any sort of taping off of the edges of this clipboard. And what I have found is I struggle more when I try and tape things off. I tend to get a lot more epoxy sort of drooping over the edges and causing a lot of issues with the epoxy darkening, of course, the other side of that clipboard, even through the tape. So I've just kind of avoided that and just stuck to thinner coats on these types of clipboards because then it is, just much easier for me to control the epoxy and ensure that it doesn't sort of pool over the sides and cause more of a headache later. Now we're going to take what's left in that cup of epoxy and we're going to go ahead and apply it to the top of the sticky holder. We are not going to apply any epoxy to the back portion of the sticky holder that has just the vinyl on it. That vinyl is going to be it. We're not going to do any other sealing on top of that because that is a permanent vinyl and I don't really need to seal that before I put these 2 pieces together. Of course, we're going to apply a little bit of epoxy to the pen. The pen will go on my pen turner and directly on the turner. These 2 will just remain flat after I, of course, torch them to remove any bubbles on top of these to give a nice smooth finish. So after that first coat of epoxy, I did feel that I was good and ready to add the decal for the sticky note holder. This, of course, will need another coat of epoxy over top to smooth over top of the sticker paper that I'm using. So this is the Teckwrap craft sticker paper. I didn't show me putting this together in Cricut Design Space because it's pretty simple. You just size your, how big you need your composition notebook sticker to be, and then you just cut it using print and cut on Cricut Design Space. So it was really rather easy, and you'll notice that I didn't even print and cut. I actually just hand cut these because sometimes I fight with that. But before I can add my second coat of epoxy on top of the top of this, I decided to do a lot of my sanding now. So even despite me using the parchment paper to really pat down all of the glitter, I did still have some issues with a little bit of the glitter sticking out on the edges and a little bit of the epoxy pooling into the inner portion of the sticky note holder here. So I'm using a nail file, which sometimes is a bit easier to use than a bulkier sanding block to ensure that I get a really smooth surface around those edges before I go in with my next coat of epoxy. So at this point, I have already epoxied this, and so I have a nice smooth surface over top of the sticky note here. And we're going to go ahead and apply these. So what's nice about this sublimation one is that it comes already with like this stickiness on the back portion of this. All you have to do is remove the backing of that, similar to other blanks you've maybe seen, and then you just literally stick it on top of that bottom back piece. So I didn't need to apply any other glue whatsoever to sort of adhere these together, which was really nice. This doesn't always happen, of course, with, other acrylic blanks you might buy. So I would use something like B7000 or E6000 to adhere these together if you don't buy the same sort of blank that I purchased. So now that those items are done, because we've already done our pen, we've done our clipboard, and we've now just finished the sticky note holder, we're gonna move on to the large door sign. So originally my idea was to use a smaller, sort of flatter sign. I got a bunch of these from Amazon, but then I was at Hobby Lobby and these were actually on sale. So because Hobby Lobby always tends to do sales all the time, I happened to be walking into Hobby Lobby when they had a spring sale holding, and they had some really amazing wood, large, really sturdy, like wood signs that were blank. There was a lot of Easter themed ones, spring themed ones, and I saw this large round one and I was like, this is what I'm going to use for this teacher sign. It's just such a really large, durable sign, really thick wood too, so I really felt really good about using this as a sign, and perfect for any wall in a teacher's space. So I've just added a coat of some white chalk paint to that, just to base paint that before we add our coats of epoxy. We're now moving on to what is going to be our pencil holder. So this is actually a straw holder, which you can find on Amazon. I think I got 2 of these for like $17.99. They once upon a time were much cheaper, and you used to be able to find them at Dollar General for like $5 to $7. I have searched my Dollar Generals, and unfortunately they just don't carry them anymore, but you can get them on Amazon. Also, if this is not an option for you, if you follow Dimensional Drinks, you can also get their pencil holders, which is just using a tumbler as a base with the insert and the top portion. You could get those pretty inexpensively as well if you didn't want to go ahead and purchase the 2 for $17.99. So kind of up to you, but I wanted to go this route just because it's something a little bit different than, you know, other content that I've typically have produced on my channel. And I like to show kind of using resin on other types and styles of, you know, different sort of canvases, if you will, to use. So after I did all of my prep work on those 2 sections, I just took them to the spray tent and spray painted everything black. This piece is going to kind of represent sort of like a blackboard look. So, but of course I can't like not have any glitter on everything, at least a little bit. So I just added a little bit of fairy dust from Vinyl Gallery to my epoxy here. You could add any sort of like mica, you know, sparkly glitter mica too if you wanted to. I just grabbed what was closest to me, so I used this because it's a super fine cut of glitter. So I'm just going to add the epoxy to this on my turner and add just about, I want to say about 25-ish mLs of epoxy onto this as the first initial coat. So this is just meant to stand on a desk and hold pencils, of course. So I don't really need to worry too much about, you know, this being used for drinking, of course. So I know sometimes people are wary about using things that are only single walled to epoxy over, and you very much can, but you do want to be mindful. Anything that's going to flex in your hands, you want to be mindful of if it's not thick enough, because if you squeeze too hard, of course, that also is going to crack the epoxy. So now that that is sitting and curing, we're going to go back to our large wood sign here, and I've added some skeleton glitz from Maestra Creations, the last of what I had of that, into this batch of epoxy. This is about 120 mLs, I will say, of epoxy. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, especially now that I've poured it onto this large wood section, and I was a little bit worried. I didn't think I was going to have enough to get me through the entire sign for the first coat, but thankfully I did. I just kind of took my time and was really patient with spreading this out. It is a pretty thin coat, but as I said, on larger pieces like this where I'm not going to be doing a lot of taping off, I like to do thinner coats and not overdo it. I'd rather go back and have to add a little bit more epoxy and subsequent coats over top than have to worry about the cleanup process that is when when epoxy spills over the sides of anything you're working on, of course. So a nice thin layer of that, I got everything spread on. Torch that, let that sit, and while those 2 pieces are curing overnight, we're going to work on the lid to the straw holder, which is going to be our pencil holder, okay? So I'm going to bling this, of course, because I can't not touch bling, okay? If I'm going to glitter something, I'm probably also going to bling it too. So I'm using my Bob Smith 30-minute epoxy, and we're going to bling out a good portion of the lid. I did leave a gap. This has like a bell shape to the top of it. It's kind of hard to explain because you can't really see it down on, but it has like a bell shape. So I did the top bell, but I left the little divot on the side alone. I might go back and add more rhinestones to that. but I couldn't decide if I loved the look of it fully rhinestoned. I was trying to image it. And then I did do that final edge of rhinestones. But what I did was I used crystal rhinestones, black diamond rhinestones, and then I used a opal or a white luminous stone from Flynn's Sister Supply Shop, of course, and I will list them down in the description box, as well as the discount code that you can use to save a bit of money here. So I wanted to give like this cute little composition notebook look up top. I was thinking about just doing all black, but I knew I wouldn't have enough stones to do all black, and so I decided to do these kind of colors together to give, again, that composition teacher look. So now we are back to finishing off this portion of the pencil holder. And so all I did was I went to Cricut Design Space and Creative Fabrica and just found different teacher things, right? Glue, pencils, scissors, crayons, an apple, right? All of those things that teachers have in, of course, their classrooms, and just did print and cut of each of these items. Made them large enough to give myself a bit of space throughout this, just to sort of give it, of course, that teacher look and teacher feel. I'm going to seal this with a bit of Mod Podge, and then we'll put that on the turner for its final coat of epoxy. Okay, so now we are back to doing the finishing touches on our large sign. And so I have 2 more satin vinyls from Teckwrap Craft. We have the red and we have the blue. These are giving me total like rocket pop or patriotic vibes too. So I might come back and do like a little blinging on these 2 colors, because I think that would look really cool. But what we're going to do is we are going to get these on my my mat here to get them ready to get some lines cut. So the look that we're going for on that large white sign is we're going to do just a simple lined paper look, which again is a really cute look when you are thinking of different teacher-esque, teacher-like things, right, to gift. I just love how this kind of turns out. So because I don't have long enough mats to cut super long lines of vinyl, I just did my traditional 11.5 inches wide by 0.15 inches in height, and I'm just going to piecemeal these pieces together as I go. Okay, so starting about 3 to 4 inches from the widest part of this circle here, I decided to do my first line of red vinyl, which of course represents the margin on a sheet of lined paper. So that's sort of my guideline here. Now I'm going to go back in, and I just eyeballed from the top and just kind of started going down, making them almost about 2 inches wide, each blue strip from the next one. Again, having to piece them together, especially since we get to the larger middle section of this large round wood sign that we're creating here. But I made sure that all of the blue lines were evenly spaced, just about 2 inches apart from one another. That way I could make sure that all of my lines were evenly placed. What was the hardest, because I didn't have long enough lines, was making sure that the lines were as straight as possible. So I can tell as I'm going through the video that some of them did go on a little wonky, but when you looked at the sign, you definitely can't tell. I can only tell now that I'm kind of looking at it in, of course, fast mode. So once I'm done with that, I, of course, will get into adding the welcome to our classroom. I just got a school themed font from Creative Fabrica, and just, plug that into Cricut Design Space and just put this welcome to our classroom sign together. I think that these would be super cute to, of course, be personalized with either the room number under welcome to our classroom or the teacher's name. So this is something that also hasn't gotten its final coat of epoxy yet, because if it's purchased and someone wants to add, their room number, or they want to add the teacher's name to it before they purchase it, I want to give that opportunity, because that is what makes teacher appreciating items so special, is that personalization touch to each and every item. So literally just did this out of some black vinyl, and that was kind of it. So that was basically the last piece that I needed to do for this. This still needs a 1 or 2 final coats of epoxy, but again, I'm going to wait in case this is something that's purchased and wants to be further personalized. But I think that each of these really came together so nice. I hope that you guys enjoyed sort of this teacher appreciation, teacher gift styles, ideas for yourself to gift for your friends, teacher friends, and all of that good stuff. But of course, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And you guys know I will see you in the next one. Bye!